Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Spree Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 9 college football predictions. So last week, I had a record of 16-1, and that brings my record on the season to 125-25. Kicking things off this week with the one game we have on Friday, and that is Boise State at UNLV. So this is a huge matchup because both these teams are among the best group of 5 teams in the country, and if one of these teams wins out and ends up winning the Mountain West, I would say it's very likely they'll make the college football playoff. But both these teams have great offenses and lean heavily on the run game, as Boise State is led by Heisman contender Ashton Jeanty, and as a team they're rushing for 289 yards per game, which ranks second in the country. They're also scoring 46.8 points per game, which is third in the country. Then for UNLV, they're rushing for 251 yards per game, which ranks fifth, and they're scoring 43.6 points per game, which also ranks fifth. But these are two great offenses. I think this game is going to be a shootout. Then, as far as defenses go for each team, both teams are pretty solid and good against the run, as they're both allowing about 105 rushing yards per game. And as far as scoring defense goes, UNLV is slightly better, allowing 22.6 points per game, while Boise State is allowing 26.2 points per game. But this is a game that can definitely go either way. UNLV is home, and their defense is slightly better. But I'm going to take Boise State to get the win. Their offense is a little better, and I just don't see UNLV stopping Ashton Jeanty. But this is going to be a great game. Boise State wins in a thriller 42-38. And moving to the rest of the games, all on Saturday, beginning with Notre Dame against Navy. And this game is actually a neutral site game being played at MetLife Stadium. But I'm actually going to this game and going to try to make a video while I'm there. So be sure to keep an eye out for that and subscribe so you don't miss it. But Navy, they've been great this season. They're 6-0, and their offense is elite, scoring 44.8 points per game, and they're also rushing for 274 yards per game. Now, considering Navy is a triple option team, they're actually quite good throwing the football. But Navy also hasn't faced a defense like Notre Dame, as Notre Dame is allowing just 113 rushing yards per game and 11.9 points per game. Now, offensively for Notre Dame, they also rely on the run, as they're rushing for 209 yards per game and scoring 34.6 points per game. Now, the Navy defense isn't great. They're allowing about 20 points per game, and they struggle to stop the run, allowing 163 yards per game. But I think this could be a close game, but I have Notre Dame winning this game, and Navy loses their first game of the season. Notre Dame will control the line of scrimmage and control this game, and Notre Dame wins by a score of 37-21. Moving on, we have Nebraska at Ohio State. So Nebraska is coming off a really bad loss to Indiana, where they lost 56-7. Now, if they lost that badly to Indiana, how bad are they going to lose against Ohio State? But Nebraska's defense is okay numbers-wise, but when they play a good offense, they really have not been good. But they don't have to face a great Ohio State offense, which is scoring 43.5 points per game. And because I don't think Nebraska will play that well defensively, they're then going to need to play extremely well offensively, and I just don't see that happening. As Nebraska's scoring just 25 points per game, they now face a great Ohio State defense, which is allowing just 11 per game. And Ohio State is going to dominate this game and win this game very easily by a score of 45-10. Up next, we have Washington at Indiana. So Indiana is undefeated, but they'll be without a big part of their team, and that is starting quarterback Curtis Rourke. And he has been a huge part of their offense, and a big reason why Indiana's offense is actually the best scoring offense in the country, scoring 48.7 points per game. Now, without Curtis Rourke, I really don't know what to expect from this Indiana offense. But they're also playing against a Washington defense that's pretty good, allowing 17 points per game. Now, defensively for Indiana, they're allowing 13.7 points per game, and the Washington offense isn't that good, scoring only 24 points per game. So I am going to take Indiana to get the win. In a pretty close game, I have them remaining undefeated, winning by a score of 23-16, but I'm really not sure what to expect from them without their starting quarterback. Up next, we have Oklahoma at Ole Miss. So Oklahoma is in the middle of a horrible offensive stretch, as they haven't hit double digits in their last 2 games, and are scoring just 22 points per game on the season, which is second worst in the SEC. Oklahoma now faces an Ole Miss defense that is already really good, allowing just 10.6 points per game. And even if Oklahoma finds a way to score, they're not going to be able to keep up with the Ole Miss offense, which is averaging 41 points per game. But Ole Miss is going to win this game very easily, and I have them destroying Oklahoma, winning by a score of 38-7. Up next, we have Illinois at Oregon. So Illinois has been good this season. They're 6-1, and their one loss came against Penn State. But they're now ranked inside the top 20, but they have a very tough task going on the road at Oregon. So Oregon, they've been great this season. They're scoring 35 points per game, but they face a good Illinois defense that's allowing just 18 points per game. Plus, Illinois defends the pass well, allowing under 200 passing yards per game. Now, for Illinois offensively, they're scoring 29 points per game, but they face a good Oregon defense that's allowing just 16 points per game. Now, I think Illinois does have a chance in this game, but they're going to need quarterback Luke Altmaier to play very well. And when he's faced a good defense this season, he hasn't been that great, as he's thrown for under 200 yards in both those games against Penn State and Michigan. So I'm going to take Oregon to remain undefeated. I think they'll beat Illinois by a score of 31-16. I could see Illinois making this one interesting, but I just don't see the upset happening. Up next, we have BYU at UCF. So UCF almost beat Iowa State last week, who is the other undefeated team in the Big 12, but now we'll have to see if they can upset BYU. UCF relies heavily on the run game, as they're rushing for 280 yards per game, which is top 5 in the country, and I think they can find some success on the ground this week, as the BYU defense is solid, but they're not the greatest against the run, allowing 141 rushing yards per game. Now, offensively for BYU, they have a very balanced offensive attack, as they're scoring 35 points per game, and they face a UCF defense that's not great, allowing over 25 points per game. I have BYU getting the win here and remaining undefeated, but like last week, if UCF can run the football, they can make this game very interesting, but I do have BYU remaining undefeated. Up next, we have Missouri at Alabama. So Alabama lost their second game of the season last week, as they lost to Tennessee, and Alabama now has 2 losses on the season, both are in conference play. And because they've already lost 2 games in the SEC, they now need to essentially win out if they want any chance at the SEC championship game or to make the college football playoff. But this one's an interesting game. Alabama is scoring 38.1 points per game, but they face a pretty good Missouri defense that's allowing 15.6 points per game. Then offensively for Missouri, they're scoring 31.7 points per game, which is solid, but they'll likely be without starting quarterback Brady Cook, as well as starting running back Nate Noel. And without those 2 players, I don't really see Missouri doing a whole ton offensively. Now, the Alabama defense hasn't been that great, especially as of late, but I just don't think Missouri can do enough offensively with their injuries, and I don't really think they'll get any offensive success going, and I've got Alabama winning this game pretty easily by a score of 35-13. Moving on, we have Texas at Vanderbilt. So Vanderbilt is ranked in the top 25 for the first time since 2013, and they now play a good Texas team. They upset Alabama a few weeks ago, so maybe they can do it again, but I would say it's pretty unlikely. Vanderbilt is a solid team. They're scoring 33.1 points per game, and their defense is allowing 22 points per game, but they faced a really good Texas team who's also looking to bounce back from a tough loss last week. But Texas, they're scoring 39.1 points per game and are allowing 9.7 points per game. Now, Texas was really bad last week against Georgia, but I think they'll have a big bounce back game. As much as I would like to see Vanderbilt get the win, I just don't see it happening. Texas beats Vanderbilt by a score of 33-16. Up next, we have Florida State at Miami. So Florida State is terrible. They're just 1-6 and have the second worst offense in the country, as they're scoring just 15 points per game and are the only FBS team to not score at least 21 points in a game yet this season. Now, the Miami defense hasn't been great in their last 3 games, as during that stretch they're allowing 39 points per game. But with how bad the Florida State offense is, I don't really see that being a problem for the Miami defense. But even if Florida State somehow finds a way to score, there's no chance they're keeping up with Miami offensively, as Miami is a top 3 scoring offense in the country, scoring 48 points per game. But Miami is going to dominate this game. I've got them remaining undefeated and destroying Florida State, winning by a score of 42-10. Up next, we have Penn State at Wisconsin. So this could be a tricky game for Penn State, as they have Ohio State on schedule next week, plus going to Wisconsin is never easy. Now, Wisconsin isn't great, but they're also not terrible. They've won 3 straight games and are 5-2 on the season. Penn State, they're scoring 34.2 points per game, but they face a Wisconsin team that's pretty solid defensively, allowing 17.6 points per game. Now, Penn State is also good defensively, allowing 14.5 points per game, and Wisconsin is scoring 29 points per game. Both teams rely on the run offensively, as Penn State is rushing for 201 yards per game, and Wisconsin running for 194 yards per game. So I can definitely see this game being decided by whoever can run the football and stop the run. Penn State's defense is very good against the run, and I think that's going to be the difference. They'll be able to run the football effectively and stop the run, and Penn State wins. But this is a very close game, probably too close for comfort for Penn State, but they do get the win by a score of 23-20. Up next, we have LSU at Texas A&M. So this is another really tough game to predict, as both these teams have been good this season, and this game is actually for first place in the SEC. And the winner of this game will be the only remaining SEC team that is currently unbeaten in conference play. But both these teams are playing well. They've won 6 straight games after losing in week 1. But this is a really interesting matchup, as it is a strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness matchup. As LSU relies on their offense and their ability to throw the football, as they're scoring 34 points per game and throwing for 322 yards per game. But they now face a very good Texas A&M defense that's allowing just 17.7 points per game and 209 passing yards per game. Then on the flip side, Texas A&M is scoring 31 points per game, and they rely heavily on the run, rushing for 218 yards per game. And they face an LSU defense that is allowing 20.6 points per game and is solid against the run. But this is a game that could truly go either way. I'm going to take Texas A&M to get the win here. I think their defense makes a difference. Playing at Kyle Field is a very difficult place to play, especially at night. And on top of that, Brian Kelly doesn't win big games. But I'm going to take Texas A&M to get the win here by a score of 27-23. Moving on, we have Kansas at Kansas State. So Kansas has been massively disappointing so far this year, as they're just 2-5, and they don't face a very good Kansas State team sitting at 6-1. Kansas State relies on the run game offensively, as they're scoring 33.3 points per game and rushing for 222 yards per game. Now, the Kansas defense is allowing 148 rushing yards a game and 24 points per game. Then on the other side, Kansas State has a great defense, allowing 20.6 points per game, and they face a Kansas offense that is solid, scoring 30 points a game and also relies heavily on the run. But I don't think Kansas will find a ton of success running the football, as Kansas State has a great run defense, allowing just 80 rushing yards per game. But I've got Kansas State winning this game and beating their rival Kansas by a score of 34-14. I just really don't trust Kansas' ability to throw the football. Quarterback Jalen Daniels has thrown 8 interceptions this season, and turning the ball over like that is not a recipe for success against Kansas State. And I've got Kansas State beating Kansas pretty easily. And our final game, we have SMU at Duke. So this is a big game in the ACC, as there's a lot of teams who have gotten off to great starts in conference play, and that includes these two teams, as SMU is 3-0 in the conference, and Duke is 2-1. SMU is great offensively, scoring 40.7 points per game, but they have a tough task as they face a good Duke defense, allowing 17.3 points per game. Then offensively for Duke, they're scoring 25 points a game and also face a good SMU defense. But this is a game that I think Duke will keep close for a while, but in the end, I just think the SMU offense is too much for Duke to handle, and SMU wins by a score of 34-21. But those are my Week 9 college football predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications so you don't miss any of their upcoming videos. I do my best to put as often as possible. Be sure to check out the community tab of my channel, where you guys can vote on who you think will win some of this week's big games. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to post as often as possible, and I will see you in the next video.